The blonde hummed a happy melody to himself as he bounced around the terrace. "What are you doing?" the gruff boar-headed boy asked. "Picking flowers for Traveler-chan." "You know the old hag's gonna be mad you were in her garden," he warned, but Zenitsu's blithe smile didn't waver. "What else are flowers for except being presented to beautiful girls?" "Feeding bees." "Huh?" "Bees eat flowers. Or at least the center part of them. That's what they're for." Well, I guess that's sort of true." Zenitsu tilted his head at the slightly lopsided bouquet. "Need a hand, Tanjiro?" Your voice caught their ears and all three of them looked up. "I think I've got it under control. Thanks for asking, though. I appreciate it." The gentle young man had obviously offered to polish the group's swords, but he appeared to be having trouble finding a proper method of action for Inosuke's serrated blades. He was staring at them puzzled when you approached. "Hi, Traveler-chan!" Zenitsu's voice barked out at you. Or it was really closer to a shriek. "Hi, Zenitsu." You smiled politely at his stiff appearance and his face immediately filled with color. Here!" He shoved his handful of flowers towards you with such speed that a few small yellow petals fell off. "Oh, these are for me?" You took them from his shaking hands and he shut his eyes tightly and nodded. "And you picked them yourself?" Cue the nod. "Aw, thank you, Zenitsu." You cast a sidelong glance to the ravaged pile of dirt next to Inosuke. "I kinda wish you hadn't ransacked our hostess's garden on my behalf, but it was still very sweet of you." Tanjiro smiled. He couldn't help but appreciate how you were thoughtful of nature. Yeah?" The kind warmth in your voice seemed to encourage the blonde. "I'm glad you like them. They just reminded me of you because they're pretty." He wrung his hands in a bashful sort of way and you held back a chuckle. In your experience, Zenitsu had two settings, extremely high-strung and puddle of melted butter, and he had somehow just made the seamless transition from one to the other. "Do you want to, go for a walk with me? It's a nice day for the water gardens, and I wanted to, talk to you about something." "Okay." You shrugged and hooked arms with him. "What about?" He glanced backwards at Tanjiro and started a hasty walk out of earshot. "I was wondering if you'd thought about my proposal at all?" You made a face. "Don't you remember what I said the other night?" "I do. But I've been thinking. Money is, fleeting, don't you think?" Tanjiro looked up at this. "I suppose. And you know there's more forms of support than just finances. There are things like loyalty and fatherhood. I guess I'm trying to say, love is its own form of currency, right? And wouldn't you rather be rich in that?" Zenitsu internally cursed himself. That was probably not even close to the original. Why did Tanjiro have to take his notes away? "That's a very wise thing to say, Zenitsu. You really are a true romantic, aren't you?" "It still works!" He donned a big crooked grin when he felt your grip tighten on his arm, though he couldn't fully relish in your praise while he felt deep red eyes staring daggers into his back from across the courtyard. Tanjiro's lips curled in annoyance, but that was precisely when the other boy voiced his inner thoughts aloud. "Someone really ought to put a stop to this." Tanjiro followed Inosuke's gaze, or at least where he estimated it to be under his boar mask, and realized they were both thinking the same thing. "It's not our place to interfere. But if I'm being honest, I do wish something would. I don't want Traveler getting in over her head just because she's nice."
"Sabotage!"
Inosuke's gruff voice stated theatrically, and Tanjiro could smell the mischief in his aura. "No, that's not what I meant. Maybe we can..." But the boy jumped to his feet and insisted again.
"Sabotage!"
"No, Inosuke. That would be immoral. If we just talk to her, we might be able to..."
"Sabotage!"
The young man didn't even sound angry, just excited. Tanjiro finally sighed in defeat. He obviously didn't want to be cruel to Zenitsu, but even he had to admit, despite him being an overall nice guy, he could still be a bit predatory at times. "I guess a minor distraction couldn't hurt. What did you have in mind?" On a secluded bench you now sat, enjoying the lush view of the gardens. The small talk had all but floated away on the ripples of the koi pond, and your blonde companion was starting to fidget. So, now that we're alone, that is. He scooted a little closer. There's something I wanted to... Whoosh! Ah! Yours and Zenitsu's hair blew forwards and you flinched in surprise, only to notice Tanjiro and Inosuke appear, one on each side of your peripheral vision. I think I won that one.
Fat chance, Gunpachiro! You ate my dust!
What are you guys doing? You raised an eyebrow and Tanjiro turned around. Oh, Traveler and Zenitsu! We didn't see you there. He lied and scratched the back of his neck with a nervous chuckle. We were just, training. Right, Inosuke? The pig mask bobbed up and down in agreement. In the water gardens? Yeah. Dodging obstacles builds agility. Had you been looking for it, Tanjiro's crooked smile would have easily given away his guile. I guess that makes sense.
Race me around once more, Gunpachiro!
Okay, ready? Tanjiro crouched into a prepared position.
Set!
Go! You watched in bewilderment as Tanjiro sprinted away and Inosuke just stood there. He approached the two of you on the bench and Zenitsu tensed in apprehension. Before either of you had the opportunity to ask questions, Inosuke began to pose in various positions.
What do you think? Aren't my strong muscles impressive?
He then proceeded to flex his bare chest and arms. You didn't have to see under his mask to know he was wearing a proud grin. But then you suddenly couldn't see at all, as Zenitsu had suddenly shielded your eyes with his hand.
You idiot! Put some clothes on!
The blonde balked at the young man's half-naked form. He knew he'd never have the confidence. No, the indecency! To display himself that way in front of a lady. It was now that Tanjiro arrived again, panting, cheeks a cute shade of pink from exertion. Why didn't you start, Inosuke? Did something happen? Inosuke pulled him to the side and began whispering something. It was blatant and suspicious enough to pique your curiosity, and Zenitsu seemed to be growing more impatient by the second from their constant interference. As I was saying... He punctuated curtly in the direction of the troublesome duo before turning back to you. Unfortunately, you were much too wrapped up in the nearby conversation. Inosuke put up a hand and whispered loudly,
Okay, step 2, divide and conquer.
Wait, Inosuke, you didn't say anything about step... But before Tanjiro could intervene, the boy took off, making a beeline straight for the two of you. Zenitsu appeared to be abnormally prepared for this. His palm was flat against the stone bench and he was braced to move. Not falling for that again, he mumbled as the muscular teen grew nearer. In the nick of time, the blonde launched himself straight up in the air, foiling the other's plan. Or so he thought.
Aha! Oh!
A similar occurrence had happened earlier this week. You and Zenitsu were peacefully sharing lunch on the terrace when Inosuke arrived out of nowhere. He proceeded to, unprovoked, pick the blonde up and just throw him. That was right before he took a bite of food off your spoon, winked, and ran off. You made sure to check Zenitsu's vitals before allowing yourself to laugh. But this time Inosuke had changed his game. It wasn't Zenitsu he had gone for. As he descended from his jump, you couldn't help but laugh at his horrified reaction as you were swept off in Inosuke's arms.
Hey, wait!
He immediately began a hot pursuit of the one who just absconded with his date.
Inosuke! Inosuke, how dare you interrupt me when I was about to say something profound! No girl likes a sap, Monitsu!
Inosuke hollered back and you let out a laugh as the wind blew through your hair. His strong arms lifted you so effortlessly, but Zenitsu was gaining ground at an alarming speed. You had even lost sight of Tanjiro by this point. Just before he darted forward to close the gap, Inosuke dodged, rounding a corner with flawless agility. That was when you gasped. He had made a miscalculation, and there was no way at his current momentum that Inosuke was going to be able to avoid colliding with the... Ah! You braced yourself for the impending pain, but then your stomach dropped. Just before impact, Inosuke managed to toss you upwards. A loud thud echoed in your ears, and you winced before you hit the ground. Fortunately, a pair of arms caught you. Are you all right? Tanjiro's concerned voice met your eardrums. He must have managed to circle around the house from the other direction to catch you. His hold was different from the firm, possessive way Inosuke cradled you, and also the smothering vice grip of Zenitsu. It was gentle, caring, but also equally secure. I'm fine. Inosuke, though. Tanjiro jogged over to the boy laying flat on his back. Inosuke, are you okay? You reached out only to find yourself still trapped in Tanjiro's hold. Tanjiro. You can put me down now. Ah, of course. He blushed but immediately obeyed. I'll go get some bandages. He ran off while you knelt by the bruised boy and pulled off his mask. Are you okay, Traveler-chan? Zenitsu quickly arrived at your side.
That was so irresponsible of him! You could have been injured!
He fussed around you, hunting for any signs of harm, but you waved him off. I'm okay, but Inosuke hurt himself. You were certain he must have been knocked silly since he wasn't objecting and saying he was fine. He was just staring dazed up at the clear blue sky. A red welt seemed to be forming on his forehead by the second. Oh, you poor thing! He groaned slightly and tried to sit up, but you held him in place by the shoulders. Don't try to move yet. Here, you can rest your head on my lap. That should be more comfortable. You slid your legs under his head. There you go. Does it hurt? Seeing you coddle Inosuke with a soft voice and stroke his hair made Zenitsu pout. Psh, what's the big deal? It's just his head. Not like he had anything vital to him. Zenitsu! Okay, you had to admit that comment was hilarious, but you still needed to scold him for it. Inosuke recently got a concussion. This could be serious. He hung his head immediately. You're right, Traveler-chan. That was insensitive of me. I'm sorry, Inosuke. But the green-eyed boy didn't acknowledge him. He just stared blankly up at you. Here, let me help get him to the bedroom. Hopefully Tanjiro went to fetch the doctor.